Welcome to the Science and Paranormal with Dr. Yana and Dr. Elliot, where science meets the unexpected, where we delve deep into the mysteries that straddle the line between scientific inquiry and paranormal. Get ready for a mind-altering journey as we embark on this phenomenal discovery together on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Science and the Paranormal with Dr. Yana and Dr. Elliot. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and also on Roku TV. Dr. Yana, what are we talking about?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. You are, by the way, live on Tuesday night with fabulous Dr. Elliot and myself. You need to have a proper introduction for us, Dr. Elliot. How fabulous we are.
I was going to say that you're live with the beautiful Dr. Yana, but I mean, it's pretty evident.
As my dad says, if no one praises you, praise yourself. Of course, it's a joke. But today we have a very interesting topic, the black magic and the science, and if we can connect anything to those practices. So let's talk about it.
Yes.
What is black magic, Dr. Elliot?
Black magic. They say you should never do that. That it'll come back to you.
That's right.
I haven't had any cases where I've had to investigate black magic. I've had cases where, actually, the Exeter case that I investigated when we were looking for reasons on why an evil entity may have attached itself to the homeowner. One of the reasons that had surfaced was that her cousin was involved in black magic. And as you may know, or some of our listeners may know, it doesn't necessarily have to be you that has invited the evil into the location that you're living at. It could have been somebody else that had been, practicing black magic.
Yeah, that's true. It's has been traditionally referred to the use of supernatural powers of magic for evil and selfish purposes. It sounds like our modern world to me. Economics, politics, and everything. It's all black magic.
Yeah, no, it's definitely got a negative connotation to it. Sometimes it's referred to as dark magic. I've heard, white magic and black magic, but it's often referred to as dark magic. Usually involves practices and rituals. It can include hexes, curses, summoning entities, conjuring activities. Sometimes it's used to cause harm to somebody that you wish ill intent against. It could also be to try and gain an advantage for yourself.
Sounds like politics, Dr. Elliot. What are you talking about? In my mind, it's all like politics.
It's been around since ancient civilizations, though. There's been documentation that it was black magic was involved in Mesopotamia and Egypt. They would do, the Egyptians had the Book of the Dead, which contained spells to harm enemies. So that could be considered a form of black magic. So, it's something that's been around society for, as long as it's been documented society.
Yes, that's true. It's been for a long time. And the reason why it existed, in my understanding, because it was very pertinent. It was pertinent to the societies at that time and to our societies as it is now, because I know that a lot of cultures still practice that. And there was just recently an anthropologist, what was his name here? Dr. Anthony Zalaveda, I think, who went to Mexico uh, to see the special market there, black magic. And so many different things are sold there. It is incredible because, as an anthropologist, he said that it blew his mind because he never even imagined that all those practices existed. And in fact, as doing research on that, he went to the places where people usually left all of those artifacts intended to harm other people. And he felt really bad. He didn't feel bad for the victims, but he felt bad energetically, he felt bad physically, and he actually even agreed to be exorcised of the evil spirits because of the powerful evil energies that were associated with those rituals. So this is very interesting that a lot of scientists, researchers, when they encounter something like that, they can no longer deny that there is something going on that surpasses our understanding.
Yeah, it's I was actually just looking at New Orleans where we broadcast live out of. A travel agent had contacted me, and she was talking about possibly doing a ghost tour down in New
Mm-hmm.
Orleans area. But New Orleans is also, well known for the voodoo world down there, which is a religion with West African roots, primarily practiced in Haiti. And it combines the traditional African beliefs, a little bit of Catholicism, and some indigenous practices involved. And it can be a very dark and scary world for somebody that is unfamiliar with it. I also knew a hoodoo practitioner, and hoodoo was it's an African American folk magic system that also does spells. And I was part of a group there before I had a falling out with the owner of the group, but people would always look for herb and roots and candle practices, usually for personal issues like love spells. There was one person going through court. I know they were hoping for some good luck in court. So it's very interesting and very fascinating, that world that is still very much prevalent today. There's still a lot of people that practice this type of behavior, and yeah, it's interesting. I've never tried a spell, or wouldn't even know where to begin with. How about yourself?
I have because, as doctors, as well, psychiatrists, maybe I don't know about psychiatrists, but researchers, we do like to test everything on ourselves as guinea pigs, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, we find all sorts of problems with ourselves, right? And try to fix them. Yes, I tried once, but I did not really consider that a black magic per se, because you're not supposed to do that, as we are commonly warned about. But I tried the Solomon's magic, and uh, that was the greater key of Solomon. And of course, it is connected with astrology and with all of those archetypal forces. And if we look at those practices from the psychological standpoint, it is very understandable, and you can justify and give explanation to so many different phenomena, right? So I did, in fact, and I must tell you that it was not the it. This practice is not for the faint-hearted. Even if you know what you're supposed to be doing, even if you do everything right, nevertheless, there are forces, and there are chthonic forces. They are very old forces that we don't know what they are, because as the person of light myself, I would be working with the forces of light. But nevertheless, over the centuries, of course, those uh, deities of light started to be considered as deities of darkness. From angels, from gods, as you know, they turned into demons, into very dark entities somehow, by the perception of humans, of course. And to tell you the truth, by doing one of the rituals, I did not take into consideration that energy is energy, right? At the time, and it was a long time ago. Energy doesn't have polarity, plus and minus. It's just energy, and depends how you use it and how you approach it, and from which angle that gives it the polarity. So I did. But I did not take into consideration that to every action there is a reaction, and to every positive side there is a negative side as well. So to the Jewish magic rituals, there of course that there are 72 angels, and the Christianity that transferred to Christianity 72 angels. But we must be aware that if there are 72 angels, there are 72 demons as well, as the opposite to the benevolent forces, so to say. They're negative forces. So by doing that ritual at night, I was tormented by the evil spirit, supposedly evil. And why it was evil, in my understanding, because it was telling me all night long, coming right in my dreams, and then also right there in the room. So interestingly enough, that you did not invite me. And why you did not invite me? Because by association, it belonged to that ritual. And it told me its name. And in the morning, when I looked at that ritual, indeed, as the opposite force, that entity was associated with that ritual. And if you remember the story of the Sleeping Beauty, we all know it. We think, oh, this is dark magic. We should not be diving into it, shouldn't be doing anything with it. But if we just look at this innocuous story of Sleeping Beauty, what happened at the time that she was born? Her parents, of course, they brought the witches, but they were called the good witches, right? Three good witches that
Right.
blessed the little girl, gave her so many different gifts that she can use when she is older, like kindness and intellect. And then, of course, in our fairy tales, human fairy tales, there is the old and nasty old hag comes on to the party. And she wasn't invited, of course, and she was the dark witch. And of course, as we know, she represents just the nature, the forces of nature. If we try to protect our children and invite only good things to our kids, bad things will eventually happen, of course, because of the forces of nature. And that old dark witch, she cursed the child, and later on, she poked her finger with a needle, as we know it, and she fell asleep. So here is the same thing. By association, we cannot be dealing with good forces and not thinking about the opposite sources that are also the part of the same energy.
That's really
What?
fascinating. You hit on an important factor about these rituals, and that's the efficacy of belief, and the fact that uh, a lot of people have to put their intentions and their belief into these rituals and spells, and they're not all negative as well. Some people use rituals as a form of stress reduction. They can provide a way to kind of cope with some stress and anxiety, especially when it's a repetitive and familiar pattern. I know the indigenous use drums in a lot of their rituals, which has a really kind of soothing effect. And certainly it could also have a placebo effect. When I was taking a paraanthropology course, it's interesting when you get into the hex deaths. One of the key thing about doing a death hex kind of rituals that you have to tell the person that you put a hex on them. That's
Oh, you
that's
have to tell them?
that's
Oh,
part of it. Yes, you can't just do the ritual that you wish death upon somebody.
it's like serving them with papers, right?
Yes,
Court
yes.
papers.
The key is getting the message out to them that they've been hexed, because it has a psychological implication to it, which is really interesting. We had a guest on our show. If any of our listeners remember, um, that was from Bosnia.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about herself that had come across a hex from her family, and she actually had located a hex bag in her house that had, I think she said, hair that belonged to her, and a spell or some sort of prayer that was written on a piece of paper, because she ended up taking that to somebody in the area that knew about that kind of phenomena, and they recommended that she burn it and flush it down the toilet. And she very much believed that it was working in her house. I remember she told us about um, seeing shadows and string of bad luck. So yeah, it's prevalent. It's really prevalent. I've never dabbled in it. I don't think I even have the time to dabble in it. But if anyone wants to wish us good luck and send us good luck and maybe some money, that would
Right.
be that would be great.
You're absolutely right that faith plays a great role in this sort of practices, of course. And if we look at our Western society, somehow we don't see that much belief, but we do believe here in jinx, right? Oh, you jinx me. Don't be a jinx, right? We say it all the time. Where did it come from? That comes from the same practices, right? So,
Or even superstitions. A lot of people believe in superstitions.
superstitions, of
I
course.
played, I played hockey for many years, and a lot of guys have a ritual that they do
Yeah, yeah.
before they play hockey. You can actually see it, in the NHL. You'll see the goaltender. They might slide a certain way and tap their posts, or throw some. I know Marc-Andre Fleury would squirt water droplets up into the air and try and focus on the water droplets. That would help him concentrate and get ready for the game. So, yeah, it's. I think it's a lot more prevalent in society than what we realize it, and it might just not come off. Like we don't see witches dancing around, and we're not like watching the movie Hocus Pocus here. But I think that rituals and spells and that type of stuff, I think it's more common than what we realize.
Well, the thing is that just because we don't see it commonly everywhere, that does not mean that it doesn't exist in the West. It does. It does. I remember I had a student. Uh, it was funny to me at the time. And of course, you have to be mindful that there's also a belief among people who do practice any sort of magic, white or black. And again, there's no really polarity in energy. It's all the same. So if you do practice magic, and those people who do, they do state that if you don't believe in that, it may not even touch you. It will not even affect you. That's a very interesting statement. However, I was a victim several times, and I did not believe in that. I was going to tell you a story right now, and oh well,
Well,
yeah, my student.
you had kind of your own experience. It kind of falls under what we're talking about, but with your generational curse.
Yeah, I was generational curse, but let me
Yeah,
just
you
finish
told
about my
our
student.
listeners. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. You had told our listeners before about your generational curse with business deals.
Yes, absolutely. And with that student of mine, let me just finish that story briefly. She was sitting right on the front right in front of me as I was teaching, giving a lecture. And one time, as we were discussing the folklore stories of the past, she looked at me and she started talking about her own beliefs, and she was Wiccan. And I said, well, we don't need to discuss it. If you want to discuss that, we can do that after the class because we have an agenda here. We have a topic that we need to cover. And she looked at me and she said, you know, I can do anything I want with you. She said, I can kill you. I can do this and that with you. But she said, I will not do it. She said, because you are stronger than me. And at that time, I thought, oh my God. And I didn't really take it in too hard. And I said, if you want to talk about it, we can talk about it later. Yeah, right there, behind the doors, right? You and me. You and me. So, and of course, not believing in that, it didn't affect me in any way, but she was angry that I did not allow her to express her knowledge in the folklore as she believes it about all those witches, and we did not discuss witches at the time. So there have been several moments that actually not really entertaining the idea, not really believing in that, kind of helped me. I brushed it off and I used the humor in order to not, in order for it not to affect me. However, there was another time when I did not even know anything, and one woman put a terrible curse at me. Terrible. And how I found out, because usually as a seer, I know if something is wrong with me, I usually look at the source of the problem. And the source of the problem was a woman, and I drew her. And I was, a friend of mine called me and he asked me, well, how are you feeling? And I said, I'm dying. And he said, well, what's going on? And I showed him the picture of a woman. I said, look, listen, there's something's happening here. And I'm being attacked by this woman. And I described her to him. And he's like, oh my God, this is the aunt of my coworker that lives in Poland. I said,
Really?
Poland? We live in the United States. What is happening? Why Poland? So, interestingly enough, that she wanted a friend of mine, and he was a childhood friend of mine, and we were in a good relationship, even here, maintain connection, friendship. So, what happened is that she really wanted him, and she asked her aunt in Poland to do the love magic, to attach that gentleman to her. And how I found out about it is he said that I'm going to send you a picture. So he sent me a picture and I said, yeah, this is the woman. And I said, call your coworker and tell her to stop it immediately because I was dying. Seriously, I could not even unbend. It was that bad. And one of the signs of being attacked by these kinds of spirits or curses or black magic is that you cannot unbend. Your stomach is hurting tremendously. And of course, there are all sorts of different causes for that. But I knew for me, that was the case of the energetic attack. So he called her and she came to his office. And he said, please tell your aunt to take the hex off. And she got into tears. She said, how do you know? And she confessed to him that her aunt, when she first originally asked her to perform that hex, to put a hex on me, She refused and she said, "That is a person of light, and I'm not allowed to do that." And she persisted and gave in. And she said, "If anything goes wrong, that I'm going to be responsible for it and it will go bad." So then she had to ask her to take it off. And when she took it off, that woman did not live for another year. And she was a young woman in her early 50s. So when people do that, this kind of black magic against the people of light, that backfires. And I know that that had nothing to do with me, and I wouldn't send anything back like that. I asked her to take it off, and she did, thankfully. But there's always a payment for this type of practices, always a payment. If people think that they can take any type of ritual and just perform it and think that they have to pay nothing for it, they will pay not with money, they may pay with health, they may pay with their relatives, with close relatives, the loved ones. They will pay with chaos in their lives, and they will never know where it's coming from. So I wouldn't advise anyone to get into that, to practice it. So be
Geez,
careful.
that's absolutely terrifying.
But if you look at that, Dr. Elliott, what is it? We can explain that with quantum entanglement, for example, right? It's like, for example, in physics, there is such a phenomena as the observer effect, right? Which is the disturbance of an observed system by the act of observation. And this is often the result of utilizing instruments that, by necessity, alter the state of what they measure in some manner. Have you heard of the double slit experiment?
Yes, I have.
Fantastic, isn't it?
Yes, they use it at the Rhine Research Center actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's where they would do it, of course. So the double slit experiment, which was first performed in 1801 by Thomas Young as a demonstration of the wave behavior of visible light, uh, is actually the fundamental experiment in physics that demonstrates the wave-particle duality of light and matter. And what it is in detail is that it involves shining a beam of particles or light through two closely spaced slits, creating an interference pattern or a screen behind them, on a screen behind them, right? And it goes into different patterns like the two or just several lines like that. And that this interference pattern can only be explained by considering the particles or light as waves that interfere with each other. So,
I didn't realize that it has existed for so long because I've seen it used in. Yeah, I think Dean Radin has used it in one of his
mhm.
experiments, and I think the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory has also used it, but I didn't realize it dates as far back as that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, because we base our own research on the as a stepping stone, right? On the research of people before us, and that is fascinating because now we can understand our reality better, and we have come to quantum entanglement as a phenomenon in quantum mechanics. So, like we just discussed, where two more particles become correlated in such a way that the state of one particle cannot be described independently of the other particle. That, for example, if you and I have this ESP moments, right, and you can guess, not even guess, it's the um, what is this? Um, the viewing techniques that we use. What is it?
Remote
uh,
viewing?
Remote viewing. That's right. It's like a remote viewing technique, of course. And by quantum entanglement, if we share the same energy, for example, and you and I do this podcast, we do share uh, same energy in some respect, right? So you will be able to connect and see what I'm doing at the time. So
Yeah,
I believe it's the same
actually,
way.
would you be interested possibly? We next week or this week actually, yeah, this week. Dr. Daryl Walsh and myself are teaching introduction to parapsychology, and it's week 4 where we talk about remote viewing. And I usually do a remote viewing exercise with the class. Would you be interested
Aha,
in being the target where they got to focus in on you on a certain date, certain time, and see what you're up to?
of course. Let's do
Awesome.
that.
Yeah, yeah, we'll do that because I know you and I tried it before, and all I could see was a white Tesla car. And it was
Yeah,
funny because you told me you're like, yeah, I was actually baking, and I was talking to my daughter, and she was telling me about how much, she hates seeing the white Teslas around everywhere. So that was really, really bizarre because that's the only thing that was coming to my mind was the white Tesla. So
and the interesting fact here is that you and I have set the time for you to observe what I'm doing at that particular moment, say 6 o'clock it was, right?
yeah,
Nevertheless, you tuned in probably at that very second when you tuned in, right? Maybe not 6 o'clock exactly, maybe it was 6:05 at the time when I was actually talking to my daughter and she was telling me about the Teslas.
yeah, yeah, that was so fascinating. And I know last time I ran the experiment, some of the students like picked up on certain things here at my house. They were able to tell that there was a wedding photo on the mantle of the fireplace, and they could see a chair. There was a chair in the
Hmm.
living room, and there actually is a chair. Yeah, it was really, really fascinating. So I think we're going to run that experiment again with the students. So
Yeah, let's do
yeah,
it.
get you to be the target.
Yeah, let's do it. And maybe that would be great to even get one of the students and be the receiver from my end. And we have to coordinate the time when they can receive it, when I can receive it, and when they can receive it, and see, do a little experiment like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There was, and of course, Russians have done extensive research in the area of that's what it's called parapsychology. But then, in fact, there are a lot of scientists, astrophysicists, and physicists that have done this research in this area. And one of them is Kozyrev's mirrors. They are not the typical mirrors, of course. They are the mirrors that represent of themselves sheets of metal of different type of metals that are binded together, and they are in different kind of shapes, either spiral as the universe, right, or that would be in the shape of an egg, resembling the egg of Nostradamus 500 years back, right? And they started doing the experiments because the scientist, astrophysicist, the causative, he was doing the experiments with time. And he realized that the time, of course, as we know, it is not really linear, but nevertheless, he proved that it is the case. And since you were talking to me, since you and I were talking about the white Teslas and how you were able to tune in to that particular minute of the time, right? They made an experiment because in those so-called mirrors, people who would get in, they would be able to first improve their health characteristics. Their health would improve, well-being, psychological well-being, physical well-being. But at the same time, the time itself would flow differently for them, and they would not see themselves in the present time. They would be able to go back to centuries back. And not only that, also to the future. And they have,
Interesting.
yeah, so they have decided to do the experiment on transmitting the information from one place to another. So they
I'm
got
gonna
this.
I'm gonna try and show something here. Let's see if this works.
All right.
Oh,
Oi, it
there
did.
we go. That's a voodoo doll that I had purchased while I was in Salem, Massachusetts. Actually, it says it's made in New Orleans. Actually, so yeah, so it does work. I kind of know how to show pictures now for our
Oh, that's good. That's
video
good.
audiences.
Find
But
the picture of the causative smears.
oh, yes, I'll have to look for that.
Yeah, let me send you this information.
Yeah, you send it to me, and I'll take a look for it. But that's good that we sort of know how to get those images up now for
That's good.
our viewers. Yeah, here, let's see if
So,
I can find it.
yeah, look it up and try to show it to us. Um, so, they did an experiment for transmitting the information from Novosibirsk in the north of Russia to Dixon, thousands of miles away. And what happened that the information that was received in probably 90% of the cases correctly. However, they expected that, but nevertheless, the interesting thing happened. And the information that was transmitted at the time, at the established time, was received an hour earlier.
Wow.
And those are the scientific studies, of course. They could not understand how that was possible. That is still ahead of us to explain from the scientific perspective. But meanwhile, people do these experiments and getting all sorts of interesting, let me see here,
That's
findings.
yeah, that's a open source picture of.
Oh, yes. Hmm.
Apparently, the Russians had patented the design in
Oh, yes.
1998.
When?
Interesting. In 1998, they
Yes,
patented
98.
the
Hmm.
design. Yeah.
Yes, they did. But that particular experiment was in 1990. And that's very interesting because if we look at that, if we look at that from the mathematical perspective, and math is everything, right? Our entire system, galaxies, all been designed with precise mathematics. If we look at the Gödel's theorem that states that in any reasonable mathematical system, there will always be true statements that cannot be proved. What do you think about that? True statements that cannot be proved.
You know, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I mean, I totally believe it. I'm a bit of a space nerd, and I always listen to space documentaries. And recently, I've been listening to just how vast the universe is, and um, talking about the different horizons and how we can never see past a certain horizon point just because of our technology. And so, I mean, yeah, I'm not. I'm open. I'm a very open-minded individual, I think, when it comes to stuff like that.
And I believe that we should be open minded because if the science has come so close to the understanding how energy field works, then it's just the open door for us for future research. Because if we look at magic, what is it? Just an exchange of the information.
Hmm.
Because everything, if we look at the Kirlian effect, and again, the Russians have discovered that uh, that everything has biological what is the word illumination, their illumination. And even if you look under the microscope on the leaf that was broken in two, under the microscope in few minutes you will see the whole leaf, the projection, that like the holographic projection of the whole leaf. So, if that has been already scientifically proven, and we can see that under the microscope, although we cannot uh, understand the mechanism on how it is happening, nevertheless, that it does with black magic, they use the personal objects that belong to people that contain the information of the owner. And with that information, that you can um, do anything that you want. You can manipulate that energy either way, to the good or to the bad of the people. So if energy is just energy, it can be manipulated at any time of the day and night. Because if we look at, again, go back to the mathematical principles, I don't know if you ever heard about the great mathematician, Afghani mathematician, Siddiq Afghan, like it was just pronounced. You told me that I have such a huge, heavy accent, which I don't.
Oh
We're
my
gonna
God.
fight here.
Oh
We're
my God,
gonna fight.
I
Yeah.
created a complex for you. Uh-oh.
Oh no. You can create a complex
That's
for
okay. I
me.
have a very thick East Coast accent, so
No, I'll just come at night in your dreams, and I will haunt you. I'll use that energy. So yeah, to be serious on this matter, that he was philosophical scientist, and I believe that he was even. Let me see. Where he's right now. He's the founder and head of the World Philosophical Math Research Center in Kabul, Afghanistan. So, what's interesting about this man is that he did incredible experiments, and he was able to design a mathematical formula that can project and foresee the events of the future with mathematical precision. He can look at the dates at your birthday. Of course, here is we deal already with astrological sciences, right? He can look at the date and the time and the place of your birth and tell you exactly by the year and month what happened in your life.
interesting.
And that is absolutely correct, because he went, how we know about that so precisely is because he came to Russia to study philosophical mathematics. And then he worked for quite some time in Russia, and taught in Russia as well. And now he is famous all over the world. I don't know how about the West, whether we heard of him here or not, but he is absolutely fantastic. And if you look at his research, he talks about it. And I try to understand, with my limited understanding of mathematics, right? I tried to understand, and I couldn't. It seems very easy to understand, but nevertheless, it is not. If he is able to predict the events of the future and tell people that he never saw before what happened chronologically in their lifetime, then everything is subjected to mathematical sciences, right? And then to the hard sciences, and we're able to approach this idea of energy exchange from a totally different perspective.
That's very fascinating. I'm just doing some fact checking on some local curses. Have you watched the show The Curse of Oak Island?
No.
Oh, you haven't? I believe it's on the History Channel. I haven't seen it in
Uh-huh.
years. It's in season 12 right now. But there is a local Nova Scotia legend of the Curse of Oak Island, which they believe there's some sort of buried treasure there. They've been looking for it for years. Basically, they're not sure if it came from the Spanish or Vikings. There's been all kinds of different theories. But the curse associated to Oak Island, which is also called the Money Pit, because they believe the treasure's there, is,
Mm.
according to legend, 7 people have to die in pursuit of the treasure before it can be found. And to date, 6 people have died during various excavation attempts.
You're not
four.
going there. I don't want you to be the seven.
Well, it's interesting because I just looked up the deaths though, and I've found 8 already. So, and they
Oh,
still haven't found the treasure. The first one was in 1795, Daniel McInnes. It says there's no record of him dying, but apparently he did die. And then in 1897, Maynard Kaiser was a worker at the Oak Island Treasure Company. He fell to his death down a shaft. There was an unknown worker that died in 1959. Again, he fell into one of the excavation pits. And then there was a massacre in 1965. They had hit a pocket of hydrogen sulfide gas, and 4 people died. Robert Restall Sr., Jr., Cyril Hiltz, and Carl Gracer. And then the 8th person was an employee. Again, had died while operating heavy machinery, and they still have not found the treasure. So that's really interesting.
do you think that there could be just a regular explanation?
Well, they've been looking, I mean, for at least 12 seasons of the Curse of Oak Island, haven't found the treasure. They've spent multi-millions of dollars. When I was a kid, I was hopeful that they would find the treasure there, but I don't know. I almost think that there's nothing there. They have found some interesting things on the island. They have a little museum set up. They have found some, Spanish gold coins and some other really unique artifacts, but I don't know if the mother lode treasure is going to be found there.
That is so interesting that as you're speaking of it right now, I see that where it is located, those people have not even go by. It is in the place where nobody walks by. This is so interesting. Seems to me that, as I see it, of course, of the place and the treasure is not that big. It's actually pretty small. But nevertheless, they're all looking in the wrong place. It is on the hill, on a high elevation. I don't know anything about it, but I know that it is on high elevation.
Interesting.
It is not going to be in the shafts. It is on high elevation, actually on the high hill, almost at the top.
They should get you to go out there for season 12.
Right? Yeah. But if I go, seriously, that if find the treasure, if I have any share of that, I would have to give it away, because that is not my money, and that is not that money doesn't belong to those people as well. So
No, that's just it. I think there's actually a law in Nova Scotia. It's like a treasure hunter's law. And if you find anything like that, I believe it has to go to the government.
yeah, but then certain share goes to you. I'm sure that's how it used to be in the Soviet Union, at
I would
least that I
hope so. They
remember.
spent thousands and maybe even a couple $1 million excavating the island. So
Yeah,
I would imagine they'd want something in return.
but somehow people have to pay for that if they find it, and if the that money did not have good energy, or excess energy was put on it in order not to for anybody to find that, then I wouldn't even want to do it. Yeah, I can help with that, but nevertheless, I can see that everyone is looking in the wrong place, and it's on the top of the hill.
That's really interesting.
So
You guys are
interesting.
listening to Science and the Paranormal. We're broadcasting live from the United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and also on Roku TV. Tonight, we're talking about scientific implications of magic rituals.
Oh yeah. A friend of mine, she was moving to Alaska at the time, and she's like, I haven't found a place where to move to. And she asked me, do you see where I'm going to move to? And I said, okay, if you were asking me, then I will tell you. So I drew a picture for her of the place where she would move to.
Right.
And I said, I still don't know the name of it. It's just the picture that came to me. And she said, well, I don't know where it is. I said, okay, let's look at the pictures of the towns in Alaska. And surely enough, when we looked at them, there was a picture of Sitka, Alaska, and that was the exact picture. And she was going to move into that because she did her research, and she said, that's exactly where I'm going. So she was there previously, but she wasn't sure about that place. But when I sent her the picture, she said, "This is the place." So that's very interesting.
And that is interesting. Very interesting.
So, Dr. Elliot, let's go on the treasure hunt.
Sounds good to me. Well, it sounds like they've surpassed the number of people that need to uh, die in order to find the treasure. So hopefully we'd be all right. Another curse that I'm not an expert on it by any means, but one that I always remember hearing about was the curse of Tutankhamun's tomb.
Right.
And I always found him to be an interesting Egyptian king because he had died when he was so young. He was like 18 or 19 years old when he passed away. But allegedly, there was a curse put on his tomb, but it was more of a protection curse for him. But yeah, that was another popular one that that would pop up quite a bit when I was a kid.
Yeah, with Tutankhamun, that's very interesting. Very interesting. And of course, so many people died already trying to open his tomb, and scientists and people, the workers who were with him, that died already. And it could be because of the inscriptions, could be because of the hex, but it also could be of the different gases that been there for centuries and they open up and were
Well,
poisons
that's just
essentially.
that's just it too. I mean, like looking at it from a a critical perspective, you've got to be careful of the type of gas that you're encountering because, like you said, you're opening spots in the earth and chambers and things like that that haven't been open in years, or there could be like mold or
Yeah.
uh, certain environmental elements that can affect you. And plus the type of work that they're doing as well is dangerous by nature anyway. Excavation work and crawling down shafts and mining and things like that.
Well, you just mentioned that gas, the sulfur, right? What was that?
Yeah,
Sulfur dioxide?
yes, yeah, that's a popular one. um Carbon monoxide as well, depending if you're not, if you're running equipment in the mine and it's not properly ventilated. That could be another issue.
That could also be a source of a different source of hallucinations.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, we know through some, parapsychological studies that carbon monoxide poisoning has caused people to see apparitions, and H2S gas has a smell, a sulfur smell. So when you investigate demonic hauntings, it's
Mhm.
important to check that out. That's why with paranormal phenomena research investigation, we ended up purchasing a gas detector. We actually had a case not too long ago out in the St. Margaret's Bay, Nova Scotia area where a lady was reporting a really strange smell and advised that her boyfriend had seen an apparition at the table. So, of course, I sent my investigators out fairly quickly on that one just because the strange smell that they claimed that they were smelling and couldn't find any sort of rational explanation for it was concerning to me. But when my investigators went out there, the gas detector didn't register anything unusual. They didn't smell anything at the time. And it actually turned out that when they interviewed the witness, that the boyfriend was not exactly sure that he saw an apparition. He said that he kind of saw it out of the corner of his eye, and it was really quickly. So it
Mhm.
the case kind of diminished a little bit thereafter they did their field investigation. But I wanted to send them out right away because if somebody's reporting a strange smell, there have been the one case I always quote is from 2002 where a lady was showering and an apparition appeared in the shower with her. And of course, she freaked out, called some
Ooh.
paranormal investigators. They came.
She
They
didn't
actually
enjoy it.
no, she didn't enjoy that. And they found out that she had recently had a hot water tank that was installed, but
Mm.
it was installed improperly and was giving off excessive amounts of carbon monoxide. So thank goodness that they did go there and discover that because maybe they even prevented a death.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look at the historical confirmation of this sort of events happening, this phenomena. We know of Pythia in ancient Greece. Uh, a place where everyone would go to, flock to, in order to hear the words of the gods, because she was transposing the words of the god Apollo, and everyone who wanted to know the divine providence on their affairs that would go and ask her. And Pythia was a lady, of course, and she was sitting on the tripod. And somehow she would get into this frenzied state of intoxication, and she will be saying nonsensical things, of course, that do not make any sense for anybody. But nevertheless, people would take it and run with it as something really divine. But only now, for the past few years, they discovered that where she was sitting, in fact, in that cave, there was a crack. And in that area, there's this gas. So, what did you call it again? Sulfur?
Oh, the H2S gas.
Yeah.
The sulfur hydroxide, is it called?
So she was sitting, she was intoxicated with those gases. And of course, that would give her hallucinations
Sorry,
and
hydrogen sulfide.
hydrogen sulfide. There, let's call it the proper name, hydrogen sulfide. There. So only now we are able, now, look at that, in the 21st century, we are able to pinpoint what exactly it was. But if we look at that time, for people, it was magic. It was something unexplained, right? So if we, for example, were to appear, even let's say 200 years back or 100 years back, no, let's say 200, 150, 200 years back, with our cell phones, oh my God, we would be considered black magicians. 300 years back, we would be burnt at stake, right?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. I think we
and
talked about that. Yeah,
we would be a stake.
if we transport it back in time with two iPhones and showed somebody the FaceTime option, they would totally think that we're into black magic and witchcraft.
Yeah, and then again, that the science as it is now was considered the black magic at the time. So Giordano Bruno died for that, right? Galileo Galilei, they all died for that. So for the science that was considered black magic. So what we don't understand now will be understood by the future generations.
Are there any like Russian magic rituals that you're familiar with? Anything that is common over in Russia, not so much common over here?
Well, there are plenty, essentially during the holidays. Also, the Christmas time. New Year time is the recent one, and also for religious celebrations. The girls, particularly, they would use mirrors again in order to summon their future groom, future husband to appear and show their face. So it is quite common, but at the same time, nowadays there are all sorts of different magical practices in Russia. So it's difficult to distinguish what exactly was Russian. We would have to go probably back pre-Christian times to Slavic times. And now a lot of there's a movement in Russia to bring back the Slavianism, the Slavic culture that it used to exist before Christianity. And that as was described as a lot of magic rituals, it was just a faith. It was not a religion before. It was just a faith and the collection of moral laws by which people lived. And that is fantastic. But of course, the gods of that time, just like Celtic gods, prehistoric, pre-Christian times, they were considered as demons and barbaric not gods, barbaric demons, right? That we should stay away from. But there's a movement now to bring it all back, to go back to the roots.
Did you hear of the wedding ritual where the bride and groom share a piece of bread that is called, I might butcher this, give it, you're just teaching me a bit of Russian here. But it's called karai. Karai.
Send it to me. I want to see that.
I'll send it to you.
And of course, you have such a perfect pronunciation.
But apparently, whoever gets the biggest bite is said to be the head of the household.
Ooh, we need to do it here just to see who's going to get the.
I know. I was just thinking, if you get married, if you get married again, you should do that and take the biggest bite you can get.
No, not necessarily. I'm not going to do that on purpose because I don't.
Did I say that right? Though,
is
it karai?
Karavai.
Karai.
Karavai.
I gotta work on my Russian accent.
What are you talking about? You're moving to Russia. Last time I checked. Yeah, it is. It is the bread. Yeah, also could be the wedding bread as well. But I haven't heard of these practices.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like I said, the rituals have been around since the start of documented human society, and they're obviously still prevalent today. So,
the head of the household. This is so interesting. That would you have taken the biggest bite? You probably would have eaten the whole karavai. And that gives Sarah a piece.
I do have a ferocious appetite, so yeah, I don't know.
No, but I believe that not necessarily that I'm not a feminist, of course, but I do believe that in the relationship, in a good relationship, both people respect each other and they respect each other's opinions. I also believe in respecting men, just like men supposed to respect women in the relationship. So for me, I don't think I'm going to be fighting with my man over a bite of bread.
I always say behind every great man is an even better woman. So
yeah,
you guys keep us in check.
What you're talking about, even better woman? There is a fantastic woman, because without her, he would not be where he is. Of the support, continuous support of her.
That's so true.
Yes. Well, that was a great conversation.
It was. Thank you guys for listening to us tonight on Science and the Paranormal. We were broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and also on Roku TV.
Well, you showed us that voodoo doll. Let's not think about it as an elephant in the room as we go to sleep. So have a good night, everyone. And we will see you next Tuesday live on Science and the Paranormal. I have to think for a second where we're meeting next week. All right. Well, have a good night, everyone.
Good night. See you next week.
Bye, Dr.